Talking about mental health can sometimes be difficult for people, especially when we're talking to men. But today we have the opportunity to talk to a gentleman and his personal experience about mental health, his journey, and how he can help other men in discussing their mental health. So this podcast, for the third segment, we have with us Tony Washington. Welcome, Tony. I really appreciate you being here. I know you have your own special story when it comes to mental health for men. First of all, as a man, can you tell me why sometimes there's a stigma talking about mental health?
I would say as a man, we're built to be strong. We're built to be that, for those who do have households, the head of households, and most of us had the privilege to be raised by another man or had a male influence in our life. And you're just always taught to be tough, especially as an African-American man, depending on the environment that you grew up in. So speaking on mental health can be hard because you also don't want to seem like, hey, I'm soft, or hey, I'm about to break down. So it's always been tough for men of all races and cultures to come out and, open up about their mental health.
So what has been your journey where you've come to the point that you can comfortably talk about your mental health as a man?
It took me a while. I think I had my 2 suicide attempts in around about 2011. And it took a while because I was honestly more, not necessarily embarrassed, but I didn't want to stress out my parents. I'm in a situation, to where I was actually raised by both of my parents. My mom and dad been married since they were 16, but I also grew up in, honestly, one of the deadliest neighborhoods in the state of Florida. I'm from, Grand Park, from the 32209 area, which is getting a lot better, but had a bad reputation when I was growing up. So I really, hid it. I hid it from my parents. I hid it from a lot of people. Only a few people knew what I was going through. And it took hitting rock bottom, because hiding it was not a good thing. That's how it ended up almost costing me my life.
So did it start out with depression? And so how old were you when the depression aspect of it started?
Around about 25. It started, it happened right after my track and field career failed. Because at the time I was attempting a professional track and field career, and it did not work out at all. It hit rock bottom almost the first year. And I had dropped out of college, and I just honestly didn't know what I wanted to do, because I had been running track since I was 8 years old.
Wow.
So I was a part of a sport since I was 8, but I got good around about the age of 16, 17, and it became an identity. I did not know who I was without track and field. I mean, if you speak with some people who knew me growing up, oh, Tony that run track, Tony that ran track. I even had a little nickname, and I won, a couple of state championships at Raines High School, had a very good high school career, mediocre collegiate career, but it was something I wanted to pursue. And when it ended, it was like, now what? I had no education. I had no job at one point, and it was just a rock bottom, and I'm watching all my friends around me just become successful. Wow. Everybody's graduating college, everybody's starting families, and I'm kind of sitting there like, okay, what I'm gonna do? So I hid it, lied about it, and it took me to a very bad place.
So you continued to go deeper into the depression, and then in attempting to harm yourself, luckily both attempts failed.
Yes, thank you.
But was it that someone found you, or?
My situation, I at one point started drinking, and it was crazy because I never drank in college. I never really touched alcohol in college. My drinking started after everything started failing, so I started using alcohol to cope.
Wow.
And that's what led to kind of me losing control of myself. So to be honest with you, one night I was just, drinking, and I honestly just wanted someone to talk to that evening. I remember it very, very clearly. I wanted someone to talk to. I couldn't get anyone on the phone. I wasn't too, well-versed in mental health and it being an issue. And so I ended up drinking. Unfortunately, and please don't do this, but I was drinking and driving, and I drove to a place where my friends hung out at late at night. One of my friends, he owned an old used car mechanic shop. So I found myself there, and I went, and I really was just hoping that they were there hanging out, but they wasn't. So being heavily under the influence of alcohol, I kind of sat in my car, forgot where I was, tried to jump the fence, because I'm thinking, well, maybe they don't see me, and ended up in this used car, whatever, parking lot, junkyard.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and it was at that very moment, that night is when I tried to, take my life. That was the first time I actually pulled out a gun. I put it to my head and I pulled the trigger and I passed out. How I got the nickname Tony Maserati, that's actually how that came into place, because when I woke up, I was in a broke down Maserati.
Wow.
That's why I attached that nickname to my name, to always constantly remind me of what I went through. That's why when people say, hey, Tony Maserati, it's just a sign to let me know how far I come.
Yeah.
Yes,
so you literally pulled the trigger and someone heard the gun go off, or?
No. It was honestly divine intervention, you can say. The firing pin was bad in the gun. I was always a legal gun carrier, but I wasn't someone who went to the gun range a lot. So I bought a weapon and never really fired it. And so I never knew it had a malfunction. So that's why I'm still here. The firing pin was messed up, so the gun didn't go off. But in my mind, it actually went off. That's why I passed out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and so once this happens, and I ask you these questions because I know there are probably a lot of people that have gone down this or thought about this path. So once the attempt failed, thank goodness, were you able to reach out for help, or was it difficult to find help?
That was the night I realized I needed help. That's when it kind of hit home, because I literally thought I was dead. I mean, even though it went off and I passed out and then I woke up and the sun was out, and I'm like, okay, I'm still in the same car, and kind of feeling myself, oh my God, what did I just do?
Yeah.
But I didn't. And so that's when I said, you know what? I just tried to do something. I didn't even know who I was. I felt outside of myself, and then that's when I started seeking help.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Was it difficult to find? Because I sometimes hear people say they believe that finding proper resources, finding a proper therapist or psychologist to help is sometimes difficult.
In my situation, it wasn't. I went to my primary care, set an appointment, and I told them what I was dealing with. And then I simply got a referral to a therapist. And my journey started then. And then when I was able to talk to someone that was non-judgmental, because talking to friends that's known you all your life, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. They know you, and you just don't know how serious they'll take you because they know you. And they don't have sometimes the best solutions. Sometimes you have to seek professional help.
Yeah.
And being able to talk and get it out of what I was going through and how I got here, it did wonders on my life.
Wow. So if I hear correctly, just being able to talk about it in a safe space helped. And you think that helps a lot of people when they're in that situation? Yes, having a safe place, because most of us as men, we're concerned about our business getting out. And, social media it was around that time. This wasn't too ancient or too long ago, but social media was around. And you didn't want to get the stigma put on you as someone who was crazy or something of that nature. And it worked wonders, just having someone to talk to. I was fortunately not to have to take any medication or anything of that nature. I just needed some direction. I just needed to know what was next. But I also had to stop comparing. That was really one of my biggest issues, because again, all my friends were being successful. Everybody, I had friends, going to range. I had friends that was literally on TV playing in the NFL, going to Super Bowls. And I'm like, I was just on a track team with this dude, winning like a state championship. This is so weird. And I'm sitting at home. I've gained like 70 pounds. And you're looking at all that success, and then you're looking at your other friends who, they graduating college, they're just doing it, and you don't know what you're going to do. But I was comparing where I was to where they was. And I got some direction, and it ended up working out. So as a separate question, because I thought about this when you mentioned that you're an athlete. How hard do you think it is for athletes to transition? I always hear about this in military. They go back to the general population. It's difficult to transition for them. How difficult do you think it is for athletes, people that have been a part of a particular sport since they were this high, the very tiny kid, and then they get into their early mid-20s, and sometimes it comes to an end. Yeah, it does. How difficult is that? In my situation, even though I didn't make it to that high elite level, it was challenging for me, and I know it has to be challenging for them. I have a couple of friends that did make it to the NFL, and you go from all this attention
to all of a sudden, yeah, we remember you, but as time goes on, things fade, and you're no longer that person that you have probably been identified as a little child, from a child.
Yeah.
And then that ability is gone. I mean, it's just gone. So it's tough. I have a lot of friends in the military, and I mean, they are military done 15 to 25 to 30 years in the military, and it's all that they know. And that transition into society, it's challenging. And I don't have always the advice to give them, but I tell them, hey, even if you don't need the therapy, you should probably reach out to it, because most of them do have the benefits. It's just actually getting them to execute using the benefits. But I always say, hey man, get a direction. Start thinking of that next plan, and don't put all your marbles in this one thing, because all sports are going to end. The abilities does not last. It's going to fade. If you're one of those fortunate athletes to be a Hall of Famer and set records, in that capacity, you're going to live forever, because everybody's going to, you're going to be invited to stuff.
Right.
But a lot of people make it, but that's it. So the transition is hard.
What do you think would be the one point of advice for anyone, regardless of if it's military, an athlete, where they had a certain type of structure in life and then it abruptly ends? What do you think is one important thing for them to do?
The one important thing I would recommend to them is to let them know that, hey, it doesn't end there. That's not the end where you're at. Don't panic, because when you disrupt that structure, it could be very overwhelming when that structure gets disrupted. From starting a new job to going into a new industry, it's all the same. Don't panic. Take a deep breath. I always recommend prayer for those who are religious, meditation, but also seek advice, because the good part about it is you have people that was in the military and they had to transition. You have people that was in the NFL and had to transition. We have to learn how to actually talk to people, because it's even hard for men to talk to other men. So NFL, Army, Navy, college. Transition from college is hard, actually, believe it or not. That's a challenging part. Or high school to college. Talk to someone that's been there. They're all around you. You just have to open up to them. So I would recommend that you just talk to someone that's been there, and they'll give you some advice.
And so going through your journey, I know that you mentioned that there was an attempt, but there was also a second attempt.
The same night. The same night.
Really?
Yes. I thought something was wrong with the gun. So when I realized it didn't go off, I thought something was wrong with it, and so I pulled the trigger again. And then, and both of my attempts happened the same night.
Okay.
And I remember waking up that morning, and I remember crying, because I'm a pretty animated, goofy person. I like to have fun, and I will find humor in some of the darkest situations in a tasteful way. And I just sat there and I said, wow, I can't even kill myself. This is something weird. After trying twice. This is just kind of like, wow.
It clearly wasn't your time.
But it wasn't. It wasn't.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy to be here, because living with that regret, a lot of people don't survive suicide attempts by firearm. The statistics are very high. I mean, when it comes down to an attempt with firearms, and being one of those ones who actually have, I'm just thankful, very thankful to be here with my family, my wife. I mean, just being able to see my kids. I have a 6-year-old and 9-year-old. I didn't have these kids then. So my entire why has kind of changed, being a college dropout and things of that nature. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here.
So fast forward now, you've gone through the therapeutic process, and your life is in a very different space.
Yes.
I believe I know the answer to this question, but I'd rather ask you instead of assume. What is one of the things that you do to help maintain healthy mental health?
Running. Running. Being a former track runner, I was a sprinter, but I recently joined an amazing run club. It's called Runners Elite. They are basically a great group of runners. And most of the time I run virtually with them. They have a virtual option, or you can run in person. I have a very crazy schedule. But joining that run club is more of an accountability thing. And I love it. Every morning, 5 a.m., between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m., I'm up running, doing my run. I use that time for meditation, to start my day off with some activity, and to just get the day going. I mean, to start it off, because I mean, even though I'm here. I survived suicide. I got over my depression. I still have my bad days.
Yeah.
And so I have to wake up that morning no matter what I'm going through. I start my day off with a run. It could be 3 miles. It could be 8 miles. It just really depends on my schedule and what I have. But just running and staying active and being around a great group of other runners too that are also running competitively. They're running for the same reasons as me.
Yeah.
And some of them are just doing it because they just love the camaraderie. But yeah, that's what I do.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Any one final note of advice that you'd like to give to men that are going to watch this podcast about taking care of their mental health?
I would say don't take failure as your final option. Find out why you failed. I would say one of my keys that's got me to a very successful place in my life is studying my failures. When I fail at something, whether it's a practice test, whether if I'm out running, I say, hey, I'm gonna run my mile today in 8 minutes, and I don't, I just study why I didn't do it. If I don't, let's say if I am looking for a job and I didn't get the job, I'll study why I didn't get it. If my spouse was upset with me that day, little stuff like that, let me see why I made her upset. Even the kids, I mean, I study my failures. Don't be afraid of failure. Failure is not the final option. Failure is not the all tell and tell. It's really just another way for you. It's letting you know, hey, the way that you just tried, that's not the way. But let's see why that didn't work, and let me see how we can figure this out and work better. So don't be afraid of failure. I mean, because I was on a path of pure failure. Let the statistics tell it, but I mean, just studying the failures and just not letting them define me, it kind of got me to a great place.
Well, Tony, I really appreciate your time. Thank
Yes,
you so
ma'am.
much for being here
Hey,
with us.
thank you for having me. Yes, ma'am.
And I believe your story is definitely going to help other people that may feel uncomfortable talking about this, and seeing someone else courageously do it.
Yes, ma'am.
That's a blessing. So thank you, and
Yes,
I'm glad you're
ma'am.
here.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Tony.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you'd like to learn more information about mental health or services, you can visit our website at newsforjax.com.